Hello and welcome everyone to Children Behind Bars, the real costs of youth incarceration, a panel conversation hosted by NCYL, the National Center for Youth Law. My name is John Lee Brocker. I use he, him pronouns. I'm the Director of Communications at NCYL. That's the acronym we use. And I'm so excited to introduce you to our incredible panel of guests here today. So we have an incredible panel of experts. We're going to speak directly to the harms of our carceral jail system, what we've been doing to create a better world for young people, and what we all can do to continue making powerful change. So in turn, I want to make sure I introduce all of the panelists. So first off, let me make sure I can show you all of our amazing folks. First off, we have Darya Larizadeh, the Director, California Policy and Capacity Building, Youth Justice, also from NCYL. Darya works to advance local and state policy reforms in partnership with directly impacted communities to disrupt the school to prison pipeline, create alternatives to juvenile justice system involvement, address the unique needs of girls, and increase access to developmentally appropriate services for youth in our communities. With a background in international women's rights and education, Darya has over 15 years of experience working with and advocating to advance the rights of young people and women, both in the United States and internationally. We also have Charlie Nguyen. Charlie is a 24-year-old student at the UC Berkeley. Charlie spent about 8 years in the juvenile justice system, experience that shaped him and the path he chose. Today, he's passionate about justice and committed to using his lived experience to advocate reform. His goal is to help build a more compassionate and equitable system, one that recognizes the humanity in all of us and creates real opportunities for healing, change, and justice. We also have Noe Picazo, a graduate of NCYL's Lived Experience Advocacy Fellowship Program in California. And finally, we have Christina Peoples, the Executive Director of the Amelia Ann Adams Whole Life Center, an organization we've worked closely with in California, San Joaquin County for over 3 years. Welcome to all of you. So excited to have you on the panel. I'm webinar participants, you can't even see, I'm holding back my excitement. Super excited for all of the incredible experience and insight these panelists can show you. So I want to start by going with each of you and learning a little bit more about your own experiences and how we get started here in this program. Darya, why don't you start us off? For those attending who are newer to this issue, start at the beginning. Like, what is the situation like for youth in the system, and how does NCYL approach this critical work?
At NCYL, at the Youth Justice Team, we believe every child has the right to a childhood where they can make mistakes, experience challenges, learn from them, receive support and care they need to thrive. This is something that all children and youth deserve. And our Youth Justice Team works at the state and local levels to advance policy change and build community capacity to keep our youth out of the juvenile legal system. And for those youth who do end up in the system, we are working to increase developmentally appropriate supports so that they can exit as soon as they can. We do this by resourcing communities, and you're going to hear about that today, so that we can support youth in the community without system involvement. We really see this as an issue of equity, where well-resourced communities have access to health-centered approaches to address typical adolescent behavior and to address the needs of youth. And low-income communities often have very few resources outside of what's available in the juvenile legal system. We use a variety of tools, from capacity building, like providing technical assistance and training to partner organizations. We mobilize funding and resources, and we advance local and state policy reforms to achieve justice and equity for youth. And I'll just say that NCYL does things quite differently in two primary ways. Number one, we center the lived experiences of youth and community partners, and we work directly with them to achieve reforms and to improve the lives of youth. And second, we are solutions-oriented and willing to work not only with community, but also with system partners to push for reforms. The majority of our team have lived experience in the system or are from directly impacted communities that we serve. And our priority is to center and uplift those with lived experience rather than the all too common model of outsiders, quote unquote, parachuting in with a set plan of what needs to be done without meaningful experience or understanding of the issues. We do not enter a community with a plan of what needs to get done. Instead, we enter with a plan to listen, build relationships, and then work with partners to achieve their goals by providing guidance and resources. We do this by working in coalition. And for those of us like myself who do not have direct lived experience, we show up with a great amount of humility and with our ears open and ready to learn from the experts, which are youth and community. It's very easy to have what we would call a no campaign, to call out what's wrong, to only be calling out things that need to change. It takes much longer and more work to build with community and system partners, to find solutions and push for change. And then on top of that, to actually resource the change that community wants to see. And I'll just give an example of some of our work in Santa Clara County, where we helped guide transformative change in the juvenile legal system over the course of many years of work. We dramatically reduced the youth incarceration rate by over half, and we built community capacity to advocate for reforms. We did this with community coalitions and in partnership with system stakeholders. And at the same time, we were working locally on the ground with community. We were also working with community at the state level to move legislation that moved $50 million from the state to community-based organizations to support youth in the community and outside of the legal system. So that money, we were able to get $3 million to go directly to Santa Clara County to actually implement the reforms that we were saying need to happen. All of this work we do at NCYL is very much behind the scenes. Our focus isn't about taking credit for wins. We're squarely focused on empowering and improving the lives of youth. And that's why we're also committed to building up the capacity of youth advocates. We started the LEAF Fellowship that you mentioned, the Lived Experience Advocacy Fellowship, to honor and amplify the leadership of young advocates with lived experience. And you're going to hear more about that today. And I just want to close by thanking our amazing group of speakers who've come to share about their lives and their experiences and their efforts to push for youth justice. And I'm so grateful that you all are here today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Darya. One of the things that really leapt out to me, and one of the things that's been really impressive and I've been really proud of at our time at NCYL, is how much we really think about this listening first, and frankly also like behind the scenes approach, like what will work, right? So a few things that you mentioned, including like really not parachuting in, right? Like we go, we listen, we don't have a set plan immediately, and that leading, and I sort of want to honor that, to $50 million is a huge amount of money, right? And like that's, yes, it's not the big headline grabbing kind of work, but it's the kind of thing that makes tangible impacts for communities. So anyway, thank you so much for going through that, Darya. That really helps sort of ground us. Charlie, I want to turn to you next. Charlie, you're a student at UC Berkeley after spending some time in the system. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your experience and why you care so deeply about reform?
Of course, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Charlie, and as John said, I am a third-year student at UC Berkeley. But, coming to this institution, I wasn't exactly, or the pathway to this institution wasn't as clear as other people's or other students may have been. They said I spent 8 years incarcerated in Orange County Juvenile Hall from the age of 16 to 24. And a lot of what pushed me towards that life was like a lot of things that went on home and how I grew up and things like that. I'm a first gen Asian American, and I grew up in a household that had a lot of generational trauma, which kind of shifted towards me as a child. So and a lot of that pushed me to seek negative behaviors such as like gangs or drug use as a source of love and comfort. And I spent a lot of my childhood being very confused about maybe who loved me, is this home or where I wanted to be. So when I started hanging out with friends from the streets, I found love or the comfort that I always desired, and that pushed me to make decisions that eventually resulted in my incarceration. And then for many of the years initially while I was incarcerated, I was deeply entrenched in a lot of gang culture and continued to make poor decisions and didn't have direction about where I wanted to go or didn't know what I wanted to do. But, over time, as I both matured and I met people along the way, who helped me and became the replacement of that gang culture that provided that love, support, and care that I always desired. I began to realize a lot of things about myself. And like during that time, it was just very difficult because I was initially charged as an adult. I was in limbo in court for many years till probably the end of it, where like I wasn't sure what was going to happen, even in spite of what I was doing or the accomplishments that I had through that time. But thankfully, a lot of change in legislature allowed me to, I guess, present my case again, and eventually it helped me get released. But during that time, like I just sought to work on myself, and once I realized like the negativity that I was entrenched in, and how like no matter what, no matter the love or comfort that I was feeling, that it wasn't good for me, and at the end of the day, it wasn't real love or comfort, and that I was just seeking to replace feelings that were missing from when I was a kid. So during that time, I decided to complete my community college, and I graduated while inside. I applied while inside, and somehow got into 10 out of 11 colleges. And I did spend some time at a different college before I transferred to UC Berkeley. But and then it's through my education and just meeting people along the way that has kind of really helped me, or helped shape my care about reform. And like I just always recall the feelings of being forgotten, both as a child and in the system, by the system, that kind of pushed me towards like wanting to change it and use my own experience so that hopefully many people will avoid the same experiences I went through. And at the heart of it, like I believe that everyone deserves a second chance, and that most who enter the system are as broken or even more broken than I was, and that like all it takes is someone giving them the opportunity, someone believing them when no one else would, that can push them to do great things. And I guess that's what has pushed me towards reform, and a little bit of my story in incarceration, and just what I'm trying to do and what I'm continuing to do now.
Charlie, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I want to really honor the vulnerability and self-awareness and sort of sharing your story. And to me, like, so many things come up. We're going to sort of dig more into your story, of course, with sort of some of the questions we have for the entire panel. But one thing that I sort of definitely wanted to sort of name and honor is that there's like so much that we all can, everyone can draw on from your experience. That anything from generational trauma to sort of like finding solace for all these kinds of things in other areas. That's something that's really understandable and relatable to everyone, and certainly something that I deeply understand and can resonate with, right? And I also sort of want to name and congratulate that like people may see sort of like, oh great, like, and I am very very applauding, standing ovation to the incredible accomplishments that you've had, 10 of 11 colleges, UC Berkeley, and I also sort of want to name the incredible progress clearly that you've made, like, as a human being, right? In order to sort of like be able to sort of like understand and sort of like work on yourself in these huge ways. So anyway, just sort of like I don't have the self-awareness that you have, Charlie. So I am just very, very, very impressed and thankful for sort of like the amazing work that you've done, not just sort of like things that would show up on the LinkedIn profile, right? So thank you for your work. Noe, I want to turn to you. Darya mentioned our LEAF program. That's the Lived Experience Advocacy Fellowship Program. Noe, you're a graduate of the program, but before we even turn to that, like, just can you tell us a little bit about sort of your story? How did you come to this program? Sort of what was your experience in it, et cetera?
All right, hi everybody. My name is Noe. Um, well, I guess a little bit about myself. Like, I'm from Colorado. I've lived my whole life out here. Like, everything that I know is Colorado. Like, I've never really been outside the state or anything. So I have all my family, all my friends here, and basically, like, I'm real close with one of the last graduates from the Leaf Fellowship, and well, I've been real close with her for about 6 or 7 years, and that's my dog, So when, because I had recently did time over at the youthful offender system in Pueblo, Colorado. She seen that I was coming home, and she came to see me when I came home, and we got to chopping it up and stuff, and she just presented to me the idea of a fellowship, and basically she just told me like, I feel like you're a good fit, you know, like you have a lived experience in the system, and I feel like you would be like you could contribute in a, you know, a good healthy way. And um really at first I was just kind of like, I didn't really know if I wanted to do it completely, to be completely honest, just because when I was down, when I was locked up and stuff, I felt like I gained a lot of like antisocial habits just being around like, well, I feel like being engulfed in like gang culture, and you know, just like a bunch of like just activity that's not really like healthy for like day-to-day society. Like it really does take a toll and like form on your psyche and how you choose to like congregate amongst like everybody else, you know what I mean? So I knew that it was gonna take a lot of effort for me to come out and be able to like talk and, you know, be vulnerable in certain spaces, to, you know, like really be able to help, to really be able to contribute. And I don't know, I at the time I didn't really know if I was ready for that. But um I mean, I feel like Leaf has helped me realize, you know, like it's helped me get back in tune with who I really am and who I want to be moving forward. Because I feel like, you know, when you're young, especially when you don't have the proper guidance, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna go through things. You're gonna get involved with people that, you know, they're here now, but they're not gonna be there down the road 5 years later, 10 years later. You see what I'm saying? And to be completely honest, I'm just really grateful to be here and be able to talk about, you know, my experience and, you know, help contribute to the youth that's coming forward, because I didn't have like the proper guidance, and I want to be able to be there for the ones that, you know, feel like they need somebody but don't really got somebody, you know. And I feel like when Charlie was talking about his experience, you know, being a first generation, like I understand what that's like, because my parents, they're migrants from Mexico, you know what I mean? And it's just it's difficult sometimes, you know what I mean? Like they got their own generational trauma, and they don't really know how to deal with it, and then it's just passed down because it's not really dealt with. It's just kind of left like nobody really tampers with it. Nobody really knows what to do with it, so it's just kind of left there, and it's just passed down and passed down. And at the end of the day, like nobody really does anything about it. But I want that to end with me, at least, you know what I mean, in my family, because I'm going forward. Like, I want to give a healthy example, a healthy opportunity in future. You know, not only to myself, but my siblings, my little cousins. You know, God willing, if I have kids and stuff like that. So yeah.
Noah, thank you so much for your vulnerability, your story, your wisdom. I think it's so powerful to hear your leadership. I want this to end with me, right? I want this to end with me. And also your choice to say, hey, like I know we all deserve a second chance. I want to make sure that we can provide those chances to other people. And a theme that's already coming up, and of course we knew this going in, right, is we're all human, right? We're all going to make mistakes. Several of us have already talked about kids make mistakes. Of course, we all make mistakes. That's part of being human. What we're struggling with is a system that doesn't adequately account for kids being kids, for people being allowed to make mistakes, for people allowed to have multiple chances. That's not something that we're seeing. And so that's the world that we're seeking to build and make even stronger and better. Christina, I want to finally turn to you. You're the executive director of the Amelia Ann Adams Whole Life Center, which is an absolutely incredible community organization based in Stockton in San Joaquin County. And I know we have many viewers from San Joaquin County, from California, from across the nation. Uh, but I sort of want to turn to you, Christina. How did you come to this work? What is your story? How did you get involved with the center and with advocacy?
Yes, thank you for having me. Like you said, I'm Christina Peoples. I'm the executive director and founder for the Amelia Adams Whole Life Center. And I named the organization after Amelia Adams, who was a true like pillar in our community, and she was really known for a lot of social justice work that she did. And I was blessed to be one of those young people that she poured into. And Like many young people that we see in the system, they have a lot of trauma. And I was one of those youth. And When I think about just like what drew me to this work, it's truly the experiences that I've witnessed, and seeing Amelia truly fight for young people, and people that have been othered. And so, growing up in South Stockton, a lot of my friends had parents that were in the system that were fatherless, motherless. And so, that in turn, being in trauma, I was in a long term relationship with someone that unfortunately was incarcerated for many years, which led to me having to see really the impact of having a loved one and a partner in the system, and helping to raise his children. I was a single mom too. So having to raise 6 children on a very low income budget straight out of college was extremely hard. And seeing the impact that it had on the children that I was helping to raise, it was really hard. Not being able to see their father every day when they were used to having a father in their life that would be the sole provider, having to spend like hundreds of dollars on phone calls just so you can talk to them for 15 minutes, because back in the day the phone calls weren't free. Spending money to get gas to go visit, when you didn't even have money to visit, all of those things, just seeing the impact, and really seeing how trauma plays in the role in how we make decisions, and how easy it is for our system to um, other people and not really look at the impact, especially when you're a young person. And so, witnessing all of that and experiencing that, I say that I'm a disruptor. And so when I see what the young people that I help raise unfortunately get incarcerated as well, um, it was like a drive, that I wanted to be a part of that fight. And so when Amelia passed away, we wanted to continue her efforts and really help lead some of the work around educating people that youth are sacred and that there needs to be an investment in youth. And when we throw young people in a cell that does not have changed behavior, it does not help rehabilitate, and really helping to think through like how can we advocate for solutions that truly where we see change behavior, because my kids can mess up 50 times and I'm going to forgive them, but how do we get to a point where you can forgive my son, you can forgive my daughter when they make mistakes? And so that's really what drew me to this work. And I've been blessed to be able to work with countless young people that have been seen as not worthy. And you see how great they are and the great leaders that they are. And when you provide resources and services and love, they're able to flourish. And so that's truly what brought me to this work. And I'm excited to be on this panel with the fellow panelists. And I'm really excited to hear from the two young people that are really using their lived experience. And, that's one of the things that our organization is really about is, we always say your pain is your purpose. And so everything that you went through, using that to really do what you were designed to do and what your purpose to do. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Christina, and it's incredibly powerful. Both your story of your own life, as well as how you came to found the center. And I love that, right? Like using our pain towards purpose, right? Like that's such an incredible thought. One thing before we sort of turn to the panel, we have a sort of number of questions, but one thing I wanted to ask you, Christina, is one of the many kind of, I think, big questions around our work is how we can best work in partnership, in coalition, right? And I think we've been really amazed and so happy to be in partnership with you all, Nickel and the center, for 3 years now. But sort of, I'm just sort of curious, can you sort of like talk about like what that partnership looks like, and also kind of like just real talk, if you have tips for other folks, of sort of like, hey, how do you partner as organizations? What does that look like? What recommendations you'd give?
Yeah, so of course you can't serve everyone, you can't touch everyone, and you're better together, right? And so if we're looking at it from a perspective of really serving a whole person, right? We all do something that's really great, and we can't do it all. And so it requires to have partnership. And so when we first connected with Nickel, it was because organization here, Fathers and Families, they were like known for doing justice work. They did awesome work. They helped really support a lot of our loved ones that were coming home that had trauma. And when that organization dissolved, the work kind of like was stalled. And because we looked to them as like the experts, and Nickel came in and was like, hey, where these young people are going to go, what are we going to do? And we did several one-to-ones, and in doing one-to-ones, I think it's really important that when you're working with, when it comes to youth, system impacted youth, it needs to be people that truly care about our kids, right? We don't want people that are like, hey, I just need this funding and I need to check a box. No, we need people that are truly passionate about our young people, that truly think our youth are sacred. Because if you don't think our youth are sacred, then you're not moving in that way, right? And so I think when it comes to coalitions, because we do have a coalition that's made up of not only service providers, but actual young people and people that were formerly incarcerated, because we should not be leading this work, right? It should be youth, and like them sharing what they felt like they needed when they were in there, right? And so when it comes to really working together collectively, we're able to bring our own perspective in and see how we can really support young people. And when we're going to drive for policy change or advocate around narratives, it's better to do it together. And I think in order to really like work in a coalition, it really truly requires relationship building, because just historically, right? Like we see organizations that are like fighting for resources, or like, joining coalitions for the wrong reasons. And so I think like when you truly found your coalition on relationship and purpose and values that align, you're able to remember the vision, right? And you remember to center young people and to center the community that you're serving. And when you see that there's someone in the space that they're not aligning, then it's okay to part ways, right? Because we think our youth are sacred and the work that we're doing is sacred. So that means that the space that we create has to be sacred. So I think that when you're trying to do this type of work, because we're fighting up against systems that have historically oppressed our people, we have to be united. We have to, like, it's a sense of urgency. And I want to encourage all of the communities that are on here to really think about, like, how can we collaborate, how can we do this together, because you're going to have a bigger impact when you do it together. So I hope that I answered your question. I know I kind of went on a tangent, but please let me know if I didn't cover everything.
That wasn't a tangent at all. That was so powerful. As the chat is saying, it's really quite incredible, right? Like you talked about, youth are sacred, and also that applies to our spaces, right? Our spaces are sacred, which means that we have to, when we're in coalition, when we're in relationship, we have to find people who agree with that, right? Like if
Yeah.
there's a partner that's not saying, or not just not saying, but not acting like the youth are sacred, not acting like they're centering the youth and the communities that we're working in, then that's not alignment. That's not
Right.
good, right? And so that's not going to be good for our whole community. I want to open it up to the whole panel here. So I want to ask all of you a question, sort of to anyone who sort of like would feel most or would feel like they want to answer. So anyone and everyone, but I want to start by sort of, again, we're talking about system involvement here. And one of the big things is that I really want to make sure that we like ground ourselves in sort of like what that means, right? No myths, no like whatever, but like what those impacts are. And also thinking about like the long-term impacts too. So, it's not just, when you were in the system or when you were incarcerated, but it can often sort of like last far beyond. So just for really anyone and everyone on the panel, can you tell more about sort of like your system involvement and sort of like what like long-term impacts does it have on you? How does it still sort of like linger?
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Charlie.
All right. So, like I shared earlier, I spent 8 years in juvenile hall, and I guess it sort of became institutionalized to like whatever the rules and regulations and just the norms of that place and just being in that space. And like being released for almost a year now and being under supervision for almost a year, I just want to speak to what is coined by Michael Foucault as a panopticon, and in a gist, that is like just a feeling of being constantly watched. And for me, it was like I worked so hard to continue like to do what I'm doing right now, and to feel like continuously like always watched, always being assumed to be doing something wrong, always like the assumptions are always bad and never good. And I'll acknowledge that there are people in probation or law enforcement that have helped me, that were supportive, but maybe due to just their personal ideology or societal norms or what they were taught in training, like a lot of they're just taught to assume, and these assumptions that I'm doing something wrong. It's like every check-in that I have, it's always like, am I doing drugs? Have I had any police contact? Not how am I doing? How's school? And sometimes they do ask that, but it's very rare. But like, it's just like constantly like feeling watched and feeling like I'm doing something wrong, when like at the heart of it, like at least for myself, like I wake up every single day and try to do my best and do everything that I can to leave my past behind and make like some sort of impact in the world, whether it's injustice or just as a person. So like, and then through my whole court processes, I was always like told by district attorney or reminded of my crimes and how maybe I don't feel remorse, or how like everything that I do is just a facade just to secure my release, when like those people don't know that like every single day I think about the things that I've done, the mistakes that I've made, and like that stuff weighs on me more than people think. And it's like to be constantly told that, and to be reminded by whether it's probation officer or just law enforcement, or people see my tattoos and things like that, and automatically assume the worst of me, when it's like, you don't know what went on in my life, you don't know what I went through, and you don't know where I'm at today. And and it's hard. So like I'll always acknowledge that I've made mistakes, but like I work to get to where I am today. And like at the end of the day, like I hope to be acknowledged for what I'm doing right now, instead of like what was done in the past, because obviously I can't change that. And with that comes like labeling and things like that. Like, am I always going to be like looked at as a former gang member or someone who's incarcerated, or be looked at as a person who's like trying his best? Simple as that. But like, it's just that I would say a long-term impact for me is just constant punitive like treatment. Like it's always what you're doing wrong, not what you're doing right. And to be reminded every day is draining, because like I know many people who maybe allow that to get to them, or it's like it's just hard for them to deal with. So they're being viewed from this like punitive lens or this criminal lens. So they're like, if no one's going to see me different, then maybe I should just continue doing that. Or like, no one's going to see me differently, so why should I change? And that is just such a disservice to the youth who are trying to change, or to just people in general. And so I'd say for me, that is the most lasting impact that still impacts me today. And many of the people that know me know how that affects me. Even when I know I'm not doing anything wrong, I'm not trying to hide anything. And, it sucks. But that's what I have to say about that.
No, thank you, Charlie. You're right. It does, right? Like it's very much. I mean, tell me if this resonates, right? But like that, what you're describing is, I mean, it's cruel, and also it has to me like even just hearing your story, right? Like I can imagine the anxiety that constantly creates, right? Of sort of like, wait, like what am I doing wrong? Like it's too. I would imagine it's too easy to internalize that kind of cruelty and that kind of treatment of like, if you're always being watched, right? If the assumption is always negative, never positive, right? That can create some serious mental health concerns as well, right? I'm sure.
Yes. And it's like, yeah, it's like just always being asked, like, what am I doing? I'm like, or like, am I doing any of this or that? I'm like, no, I'm at the library till like 5 a.m. doing work. But
Right.
it's like it's always things like that. That's like just for me, like creates so much anxiety that I'm like, and like at least for me, I have so much support and like people continue to like help me along the way that where I'm like, I'm all right, like I'm not gonna allow this to get to me. And whether it's purposeful or not, like it happens. And I just feel like so many law enforcement or people like who do that don't acknowledge it, don't acknowledge the impact that it may have when it's like it's such a real thing.
Absolutely. It's critical to acknowledge that impact. Um, I want to throw it open to the rest of the panel if folks have things to add. What are the impacts of system involvement for you, and or sort of like what are the lasting impacts of system involvement?
So I felt like I really resonated a lot with what Charlie was talking about because I remember like well at Wild West, like when you get sentenced there, I did like 2.5, almost 3 years there. Nothing compared to what Charlie had did over where he was at, but still like it was enough time for me to sit there and to really just allow that experience to shape who I am now. I guess is probably the best way I could put it. But I remember like when you get there, like they put you through boot camp, they shape you bald, like they just put you through all the motions, right? And like it's funny to me now, but I remember in the moment, like it was just like it just felt different, you know what I mean? And honestly, like I remember they were like it doesn't matter what you do or say, like you're always gonna be wrong and staff is always gonna be right. So what does that do like in the end, you know what I mean? Like you could have like a valid argument, you know what I mean? Or like you could have like a valid reason to be calling out staff, you know what I mean, on what they're doing wrong. But if staff don't like you, if they're prideful, you know what I mean? They're human at the end of the day too. If they just don't, if they simply don't like you, they could just say no, he's wrong, he's acting out, he's a knucklehead, like nobody um like we always have issues with him, and then boom, like you're never gonna have a valid argument or like a valid way to be able to express to the higher ups what's going on, even if the staff is wrong, because they're gonna take staff's word over your word any day because you're the offender, you're the one that's here for assault, attempted murder, you know what I mean? And yeah, like don't get me wrong, like you like offenders, yeah, they have like past with, and some of them are still active gang members, and like they're still into that life, you know what I mean? And they don't see the ones that are like really there to rehabilitate themselves. That's why I really want to applaud Charlie on everything he's been through over the last 8 years, and still coming home and making the effort, still not even being in the community and just going right back into the life that he's into. Because I know a lot of people like that, and to be completely honest, I wouldn't blame them solely. Because yeah, like they have a say so in that, but it's kind of difficult when, you know what I mean, like you're raised in a certain environment, and like you go back home and that's all there is. Just negative things, a negative community, a negative environment, and you're the only one trying to do good. There's really no resources, there's really nothing there to help you. And yeah, like I mean, I'm still on supervision, and like my PO be asking me the same thing. Like he never asked me if I'm doing good. He's never asking me if anything is okay. Like he's really just like, hey, like you were late this day. Why were you here? What were you doing? You were at this house for way too long. Who lives there? Like, what are y'all doing? Are they like he just always worried about me being around somebody that's doing drugs, drinking, which I understand, you know what I mean? But like I'm just trying to do what I need to do so that I can get off of parole so I don't have to deal with them no more. And yeah, like they never really acknowledge when you do anything good. Like if you do anything good, it's like, all right, that's what you're supposed to do. Like it's never like you get like praise for doing good, you know what I mean? And to be completely honest, like I don't do anything to get praise from nobody because I don't need that. I don't feel like I need to be praised for anything, you know what I mean? But like on a on a human standpoint, just you know what I mean? Like I feel like it feels good to be like, hey, like good job, man. Like you're doing the right thing. Like you're doing really good. Like that. Like that's what's up. That's good. Keep doing that. But I mean, honestly, I've been through a lot, especially when I was locked up. Like I seen a lot, and I could see how like being away, like it really changes you. Like being told when you can eat, when you can go to sleep, when you can recreate, when you could lay down and read a book. Because where I was at, there were like it's like a military boot camp program. Like you had to be out of your bed by 5 a.m. fully dressed. Even if you didn't have school, you had to be fully dressed and in the day hall. Like you couldn't you couldn't be laying down and resting on your day off if you didn't have school. Like if it was a weekday, you had to be up. You know what I mean? Like it didn't matter. It didn't matter if you were sick. It didn't matter if you just like if you needed like a mental rest day to just relax. Like none of that mattered. Like you had to be up and on point. And I mean, to be completely honest, when you're locked up, you shouldn't really be like kicking it like that, anyways, because you never know what can happen. But still, like sometimes we're human. Like people need that, but you know what I mean. Like in these programs that are meant to like rehabilitate the youth, like we're not really rehabilitating them. We're just really forcing them to like put their feelings in their back pocket, especially for young men. Like that's not really healthy. You know what I mean? Especially going down the line, like that's not something that you really want to see because those habits are the reason why, or some of the reason why, you know, men have so much built up anger and hate toward themselves and their lives, and they project it on their women. Like their daughters, their sons, their wives. You know what I mean? Like, and I feel like it just goes way deeper. But honestly, like
No,
I feel like
exactly.
that's why I'm here. You know what I mean? Because I feel like a lot of things need to change that nobody's really talking about. And if we don't make the effort now, like nothing's gonna change. Nothing.
Absolutely, no way. And you're speaking to so many things that are coming up as recurring themes, right? This
Nah,
notion
for sure. Yeah.
of things like the everything from sort of trauma that we experience, but also the idea that Charlie brought up of sort of always being watched, right? Always being watched, and assumption of guilt, assuming that like the worst is always true, right? And so just this sort of like real negativity and cruelty that's sort of being enacted that like can create even further trauma. Right, so I think you're absolutely speaking to this, and we'll get into. I'm seeing some amazing sort of like discussion and sort of questions in chat. We'll get to that in a second. One thing that I want to do briefly and just bring the panel back to our stage for a second is I want to ask another question because we've sort of all been talking about again the system and sort of the impacts it's had. We've sort of briefly touched on, but I want to hear there's so many different responses to that, right? Like the system itself has some responses. There are some providers, there are nonprofits, there are community practitioners, et cetera. I'm curious for all of you, what what helped you the most when you think about your journey through these systems of different kinds of things? What helped you the most? And if it helps to be more specific than that, like, is there a person or a program that like really stands out as like providing the support that you needed in a certain moment?
Honestly, I feel like the one thing that really helped me when I was locked up is um not like a specific group, not the school, not none of that. I feel like it was just like when you could have a regular conversation with somebody that was either locked up, because like when you're with inmates, like especially like in like a gang dense like population, like everything is politics. And then to when you're talking to like a staff member or like a corrections officer, they're like you're playing like cops and robbers, like good guy, bad guy, you know what I mean? When you could have just a regular conversation, like you guys could drop all of that and just like just have a regular conversation, just something that makes you feel human and not like different. I feel like that's what really helped me, honestly. And being able to like talk to my family and my loved ones, which at Wild West, like you had to earn that. Like you had to earn your level to get canteen. You had to earn your level to call home. Like you, like I was with one phone call a week for the longest, and I had my lady, and I had my mom, and I had to juggle all of that. You know what I mean? Like I lost a lot of time and a lot of communication with my family because I didn't know who to call and stuff like that. So I feel like just like regular, just things that made me feel human is what really helped me. And conversations, just really like simple conversations, like, "Hey, how you doing?" Like, "Oh, like I'm good," this and that. Just simple conversations like that. Because I feel like when you're locked up, everything is so like, I don't know, like saturated in a sense.
Absolutely. And I think that's really powerful in the way that like it's and a really important reminder that some of the small things can also be deeply powerful too. Right? Charlie, I want to turn to you. I think you noted that you had something to add.
Yes. I think for me, what helped me the most at its core was just positive relationships. And for me, it was like, again, and this goes to like the conversations Noe mentioned. It's like having those conversations with people, and for me, it was like seeing that other people believed in me, and especially like my legal team. They really helped me a lot. Shout out to Maribel. But yes, like it's just they believed in me. They had conversations with me, and they like saw me as a person and not for who I like what I was inside for and all that. And then just seeing like the belief in people, and especially people who had like no ties to the system. That like, of course, at first I had kind of had like trust issues. Like, why does this person care? Like, what investment do they have in me? But then as I started to see that like they truly cared like about me as a person and then wanted the best for me and like and especially like and no matter what it was through like my hard times, like my lowest of the lows that a few people have seen me through, and my highs, they supported me no matter what. When it's like everyone else, like it's like if you mess up, then you're kicked to the curb, you lose all your privileges, and then like you're seen as now you're regarded as criminal again. It's like that defeats the whole purpose, and like that just makes me want to continue because of the treat like, and not that I'm asking for like good treatment. I don't need to be babied. I don't need to be told that I'm doing well all the time. But sometimes that bit of encouragement, that support has helped me get through like the toughest of times. And it's kind of really motivating, like, because a lot of times like I didn't care about myself. That's why I made the choices that I did. Because like I didn't care like what should matter what happened to me. But once I started to see that people cared about me for who I was, people valued my relationship with them and saw what I had to contribute, is when I started to believe that for myself. So it's like that's why I say like for me at its core, it's like the relationships, like the real care and love and support that people gave to me when they didn't have to at all, that really helped me get to where I am today.
Thank you so much, Charlie. I think that that's so powerful, and thinking both about sort of like the the various folks, right, from sort of like, legal team to folks outside, any kind of system involvement whatsoever, that were like really instrumental in being helpful in different ways, right? So thank you for sharing that. Um, Panel, I want to bring back the panel to the stage for a second. Chat, I typed it in a little bit, but if you do have questions, we have unfortunately a limited time, so I don't think we'll be able to get to sort of that many audience questions. Just to have time for a few more. One that I want to ask that has come up, and I do think applies to the whole panel, so would like to apply to everyone, but please, only feel free to chime in if you'd like to. But one question is about sort of this notion, and Noah, you even spoke to it a little bit, of sort of like toxic masculinity, of sort of like how, for young men, what is a way that we can make sure that we are showing care, showing support, but also sort of like combating these sort of like toxic aspects of a certain kind of masculinity that can present. So I'm just sort of like curious, sort of like your reactions, your thoughts to that question. And obviously, it's a huge question, so probably sort of more time than we have for this, but sort of your curious thoughts, because we all work in these communities.
I really feel like if you just want to be like just straight to the point, honestly, like we have to stop shutting down like our young men. You know what I mean? Like when like, and we have to like give them the space to be able to like make mistakes without condemning them to being a certain way. You see what I'm saying? Like in a family setting, like I remember my mom growing up, like she didn't really realize the impact this had on me, but it was like I would, I don't know, I'm just being me, being bad, like as a kid or whatever. And she's like, "Oh, you're just like your dad, da 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 da, this and that," and you know what I mean. And like on, like I feel like it's the same thing, like in society, but it's just a little different, like you know what I mean. Like I feel like in society, it's more about like your race and like what your race like with those with that like race is like, how would I say, like back then, like when Donald Trump came out saying that, like Mexicans are rapists and they're like this and like that, you know what I mean? Like I feel like that's really what it is. We just can't keep condemning our young men to being a certain way. Like we have to give them the space to be able to make mistakes and help them understand that that was a mistake, and like show them how not to make that mistake or what to do instead. You know what I mean? Proper guidance, I feel like, is important because I didn't have that, and I feel like that's really why I'm doing this, to be able to give some type of, probably not the best guidance, but I mean, I know what I did wrong. I know what I wouldn't want the rest of these youngins out here to do. You see what I'm saying? Like I want to be able to give my experience as their own so that they know how to navigate through life a little better. If I don't know if that really answers your question, but
No, it does, Noah. Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing that, right? And again, that speaks to so many things that we're talking about, right? Like we all make mistakes, right? Like maybe radical, this is a John opinion, but like kids aren't bad, right? Like kids can do bad things, but we all make mistakes, right? Like everyone makes mistakes. That is not unique to anybody. But what we can control is we can't condemn people. We need to do better about giving people those chances, letting kids be kids. Something that comes up again and again and again. I want to bring back the panel to the stage, keeping an eye on our time here. I want to spend just a million hours with all of you. So I'm sorry we have to sort of cut this a little bit short, but I do want to end on action and what we can do. Right, we have talked about sort of a lot of the harms and sort of some things that have helped, but I'd be curious for each of you, if the amazing attendees of this webinar event said like, okay, I'm ready, I'm convinced, you all are amazing, I want to do something. What is one thing that you think they could do to help make things a little bit better? Again, it can be a small thing. As we've talked about, those small things can be and are super powerful. What's one thing people can do in this moment? Yeah, Charlie.
Yes, I just want to end and I'm just gonna assume that most people here are allies, but then they just like continue to believe in youth despite the mistakes they continue to make, and to see continue seeing them for more than just their actions. Because I feel like even every mistake I've made, it's like when I really analyze and look deep into myself, I knew there was like underlying issues. So it's when we focus on those underlying issues and when we can like practice restorative justice and do real healing, as opposed to like a perpetuation of these cycles that will just continue, especially if we allow it to and the people in power allow it to. And like one alone, it's like just to celebrate the small wins and progress rather than expecting change that is unrealistic, because I feel like so many hold that. It's like, why haven't you changed, or why haven't you done this? It's like things take time. Like for me to like get those negative mindsets, like it took time and they were deeply embedded. But it was like the people who helped me celebrate my small wins and saw the progress and just continue to believe in me despite whatever it is I was doing through my lows and through my highs, that like helped me get to where I'm today, and like helped me believe in myself and to do all that is I'm doing. And I know that for like the other folks that I was also incarcerated with, that like, you know, I always tried to believe in them even if like other people didn't, and a lot of them acknowledge that. So I feel like it's universal, that it's just like just having someone that believes in you and sticks with you through your highs and lows, that is something that anyone can do, that is so helpful and so crucial to like to change and like quote unquote rehabilitation or restorative justice.
Thank you so much, Charlie. I love that, right? Speaking both to like the belief and support that we can offer. And also, I love that notion you brought up of healing, right? Of this idea that, like, when we, because right now, so often systemic responses can be punishment, right? Punish, 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 right? And I love what you noted, right? Which is analysis, right? Curiosity. And this is the kind of thing I wish we all could do, and not certainly something I try to do in my life, right? Is when I make a mistake, why did that happen? Right, like how can I understand this, right? And I think that curiosity can serve us a lot better than punishment. uh, Christina, I want to turn to you for a second for the same question. Like, what's one thing that you tell folks if they said, oh my gosh, Christina, like you are the best, what how can I help? I really want to make this a better situation.
Well, one, if you're not doing work, you should be doing work and connecting with a group of people that are trying to do this work, because this work could be very lonely. And then what you can do, like individually, personally, is like next time someone labels a young person um, as a delinquent, as a thug, as a juvenile, anything other than sacred, or a young person or a youth, like educating them, right? Because we can do better if we don't know better. And I think like really helping reframe how we look at youth is really important, because I think if we saw kids as kids, we would discipline them out of love. We would correct them in love. We would help heal them in love, right? So I think that's something that you can do individually, and then collectively connecting with a group of people that are doing this work and in partnership with youth.
Absolutely. I love that so much. In partnership with youth, focusing on this work and remembering always to center youth and reframe this conversation. So powerful. Um, Noah, I want to turn to you now. If there's one thing that you could tell folks that they can do to sort of try to make things better or advance this, what would you tell them to do?
Man, to be completely honest, I would just encourage anybody and everybody to get involved. Just like Christina said, like, I mean, I wouldn't know too much because it's like this is like me like getting my feet wet like in this um like in this work and stuff. But yeah, like getting involved, you know what I mean? Like really like being there, like, you know, with people that are like actively doing things to advocate for the youth, you know what I mean? And also just you know, just giving the youth a healthy space for them to make mistakes, because I feel like that's the most important. You know what I mean? Like there's no there's no right or wrong answer to like what like a kid is supposed to do, you know what I mean? And you never know like what experiences are gonna help a youth grow in certain ways that, you know, just like a regular normal life would. Because I feel like because I have family members that, you know, like live like a healthy life, you know what I mean? Like both mom and dad home, um, went all through elementary, middle school, high school, and you know, like they struggle to really like express themselves. They struggle with identity. They struggle with, you know, what they really want out of life. And I feel like I grew up with my parents getting divorced when I was like 6 or 7. I almost dropped out of high school. Thankfully, I made it out. You know what I mean? I was one of the only one of my homies that made it out at high school. And I was thinking I was gonna be the one to do good, and I was the one that got locked up, getting charged with first degree attempted murder, getting that dropped down to fucking. Ooh, so sorry. To getting that dropped down to first degree assault. You know what I mean? With a deadly weapon, and now like I feel like everything that happened in my life has helped me understand who I really am, because I feel like those experiences have really pushed me to the limit to really, question myself like what am I gonna do in certain situations? How am I gonna react when things get hard? You know what I mean? And basically it just helped me realize a lot. Like I know I'm gonna go hard for my people every time. And that's not a question, you know what I mean? And I feel like me going through everything has really helped me understand that with my experience and what I know, if I don't get involved, I'm also a part of the problem. You see what I'm saying? And that's really all I want to say. Like, I feel like everybody just needs to get involved in their own way.
Absolutely. Thank you, Noah. Everyone needs to get involved, and we need to create that space for youth to be able to make mistakes. Daria, I want to turn to you. If folks had one thing that they wanted to do based on, this amazing panel that we've been speaking to, what would you advise they do?
Yeah, I mean, first on, thank you so much to this panel of amazing speakers and amazing human beings with us today. I would say on an individual level, we heard that youth are feeling watched, they're feeling surveilled, but not really feeling seen for the human beings they are, for the sacredness that they have within them. So get to know some youth, show up for them, be that one person that is their support, offer that one space that they can go to, that they can be themselves. On a bigger level, get involved with NCYL. We are working across California. We're working across Colorado. We are working with people like you've heard from today, and we always want more supporters and allies working with us, showing up to meetings with us, showing up to policy conversations. We open the door and would love for folks to join us. Happy to share my email and get more folks involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daria. Thank you so much to our entire panel. And thank you for everyone for joining. If you want to learn more about some of the work that we're doing, you can always find us at youthlaw.org online and see all of our different platforms that we're on. I also wanted to make sure to reassure everyone, this is recorded, so it will be available after the stream is over, but also we'll make sure to put it on our YouTube channel for easy viewing. Thank you again so much for all of your work centering youth, and we will talk to you all later. Keep up the good work. Bye, everyone.